Trump has offered Canada status as the 51st state. If we had a well-constituted country, this would have never happened, or the suggestion would have been laughable. I see damn few people laughing, however, and more's the pity. A strong case can be made that such subordinate status would not at all be a good deal for the Great White North as a whole. For Alberta, however, and perhaps for the West as such, the situation is not so clear. Here's what I might do, given that, if I were in Premier Daniel Smith's shoes, or at least what I might threaten to do, taking a page from Trump's Art of the Deal book, because it's high time for the Albertans to play hardball. I might travel, say, to Mar-a-Lago, where I did in fact recently encounter that premier. I might have, well, there, a forthright, even blunt chat with Donald J., where I might say to him something like the following. Mr. President, my fellow Canadians have for decades compelled us to climb into bed with an 800-pound gorilla. That would be you, Mr. Trump. Now you've decided to consummate the deal, so to speak, and we've given you the upper hand on a silver platter, to mix metaphors terribly. While you're doing so, Canada is unlikely to become the 51st state, however. Not even Alberta, as you may well know, sir. After all, you'd have to offer us something better than what has been put forward by our fellow Canadians. That would be the continued privilege and expense of subsidizing Quebec, half of whose citizens consistently clamor to secede from the country, while we impoverish ourselves for their benefit. The constant imposition of serious practical impediments from the federal and other provincial governments, hint, hint, British Columbia, to the international business deals and pipelines that would help Alberta bring its resources to market. Continual insult on top of such injury in the form of unbearable and naive moralizing about their superiority in conviction with regard to the sustainability of the planet. And to top it all off, the accusation that I, Daniel Smith, am not patriotic enough to start a trade war with my strange bedfellow in the name of a country whose very leaders proclaim both identitylessness and a multiculturalism that none of my citizens want. And Trump might well say, or perhaps is even saying right now, I think I could top that offer, Ms. Premier. Fine as it is, I could offer Albertans the American dollar, full access to our markets for their resources at full international price, lower costs on almost all manufactured goods and on food, lower taxes, both corporate and personal, membership in a country that prides itself on being a country and that does not plan to dissolve itself into an unstable multicultural mishmash, genuine admiration for your economic and industrial endeavors, along with a can-do, visionary, and deeply entrepreneurial culture, immediate, reliable, and guaranteed access to ports and pipelines, and full military defense. And if that's not enough, dear lady, no transfer payments, and the additional psychological advantage for Albertans in foregoing the perpetual and bullying Eastern Canadian attitude of grievance and moral superiority, emanating in particular from the Quebec, give us what we want forever or we'll leave, who also shamelessly disdains your dirty fossil fuel, such that they made the fracking Alberta's economy depends on literally illegal in their jurisdiction, just to make a point, while simultaneously accepting, and not with good grace, the filthy money so generated. What do you think would happen, O Canada, if those were the two choices put forth on a ballot before the citizens of Alberta? And why should Smith not take full advantage of this opportunity to tell her fellow Canadians, in no uncertain terms, a few things that would both make Canada an attractive place for Alberta, and the rest of the West, perhaps, to stay, and much saner and richer to boot? And what would that be? Enough pathetic celebrity wannabe pandering to the international elites of Davos, and for good measure the UN. Enough overt and covert attempt to destroy the basis of the economy of my fair and hardworking province. Enough delaying critical infrastructure development and rejection of international trade offers for natural gas, oil, and coal. Enough treatment of the resource economy upon which Quebec in particular so unacceptably depends as a moral pariah. enough idiot green moralizing, enough carbon tax, enough bloody net zero. And how about this? Enough multiculturalism and destruction of the Canadian identity. Why belong so expensively to a country that despises its own history, economy, and people? Make us a better offer, and quickly, my Canadian friends, or Trump's tariffs will be the least of your problems. And all of this would not only be good for Alberta, and by extension for the working people of Canada, it is also absolutely necessary for Canada, perhaps to even survive, both economically and politically. There's a reason we, like the Europeans, now make a measly 60 cents for every dollar made by our American friends. The reason has much to do with the attitudes we have adopted ever since the benighted 1960s that have made us not such good friends at all. Trump is threatening the integrity of Canada very effectively. The fact of that threat and of its effectiveness might make us think twice. In such thinking, there could be the opportunity to shed the idiocy that is making us poor, weak, irrelevant on the international stage, and contemptible to our neighbors. We can make his saber rattling into an opportunity, increase our interprovincial cross-border trade, get out of our own way on the energy front, rekindle our national pride, at least to the point where we regard our country as both viable and valuable, seek the international markets that would make us more truly independent as a nation, strengthen our commitment to the military that would be increasingly and truly necessary if such independence were pursued, and make of the next 100 years Canada's triumph, instead of the story of its contemptible, self-aggrandizing, moralistic, falsely green, and socialist demise.
This is a slow motion suicide of the Democratic Party. They're screaming and yelling on the confirmation. You've aired probably the voting at the DNC, that crazy, I don't know what you would call it, quotas on which candidate was of which sort of sexual orientation. And then this meltdown over Elon Musk. Elon Musk, I mean, the National Security Advisor of the United States doesn't have to be confirmed. He serves at the wish of the president. So Elon Musk doesn't have, he's the same category. And then if you think about the scientific stuff that Elon's trying to do and bring coding and everything in for efficiency, they just turned over the war effort on the War Production Board. These guys weren't elected. They were not confirmed. Henry Ford, Henry Kaiser, William Knudsen, they just rebooted the entire American economy. They were geniuses at what they did. But this is not new to have an advisor. What's new is that he actually has a statutory authority in this new agency of DOGE. But I don't know whether he's an apostate and they're furious at him because Tesla and his wealth was used on their behalf, but they're just committing suicide, and they're down to 31%. That's the lowest in my lifetime they've ever been, an approval rating. And I guess they want to go down to 20, and they will get there if they keep this hysteria up. They don't understand that most people, I'd say the vast majority of people, are so sick of it, and they just want to cut the size of government. They don't want to give the BBC 8% of its budget. They really don't want to do that. They don't want to pay for the subscriptions of bureaucrats to Politico. And another thing they don't mention is we're spending a lot of money to go into traditional fundamentalist societies in the Middle East and Asia, and then almost as if we're 19th century pith hat British imperialists, that if you really want to alienate a traditional society, you don't bring in and all of these crazy ideas, politically correct Sesame on street on Middle East TV. But they're really cultural imperialists. That's what's so ironic about it. And they turn off people overseas. So when Elon says get rid of it, it would be better for foreign relations, I think he's right. It's not just the 50 billion we'd save, but we wouldn't appear so obnoxious and sermonizing and arrogant to all of these societies that purportedly we're helping. Yeah, the problem with this is, say here in California, we're no different. If you look at polls if you look at deportation of criminals, it's about 70% for it. So on almost every one of these issues, they're on the wrong side. And then what they're really frustrated about, Megan, is they don't have the White House, they don't have the House, they do not have the Senate, they do not have the Supreme Court, they do not have public support on any of these issues. They have no power of subpoena, they can no power to block confirmation. They're completely impotent. And that was their own doing, and they're very frustrated because they have given a sample paradigm blueprint through Joe Biden's executive orders and his pressing the limits of what a president can do. And it came right into Trump's hands. And he said, Biden did all of this stuff, then I guess he set a precedent. And they've really shot themselves in the foot. And this is not going to go well because we have federal laws, and this is Confederate nullification. We have 600 sanctuary jurisdictions, and technically they're all breaking federal law. And the Constitution is very clear that state law does not surpass a federal law. Because he has this power and they have none, Trump can just say, pick which federal program you don't want, but you're breaking federal law, so I have no intention of extending federal money to you until you comply. And I think the courts will probably back him up on that. Here in California, we got about $100 billion bill minimum to get Los Angeles ready for the Olympics, and they're going to need a massive infusion of federal money. And you can see Gavin Newsom, he bent the knee almost immediately when he saw Trump. They understand that. Trump doesn't have to make a big deal of it. He just has to say, if I'm going to give you this federal money, I'm going to send Rick Grenell out and he's going to watch over it. And he's got public support. There's such a backlash right now about the DEI and what happened in Los Angeles. They're on the wrong side of every one of these issues. And now people are starting to get really angry about it. And I think what's also missed here is when Donald Trump came into office, they were very confident because they thought that they could infiltrate the administrative state. As remember, Anonymous said he was going to stop Trump from the inside. We had Vindman doing it. We had Rex Tillerson calling Trump stupid. We had Jim Mattis. We had all of these guys. And Trump got wise and he said, you know what? I'm not going to have any of them. I'm going to have people that are more MAGA than I am. And I'm going to turn them loose. And they can't handle that. They're looking for some interior person. Maybe the Secretary of State, maybe the Secretary of Defense can sabotage it like we used to do. But there's no one there. And so they don't have any power now. And I've never seen such asymmetry. And they're just getting angrier because they're used to being coddled. And they're losing the media now. They don't know what to do with your podcast, Joe Rogan's. They have no idea how to compete with that. They're losing lawsuits for the first time, big lawsuits. And it's like that whole revolution is now meeting a counter-revolution, cultural, social, economic, political, kind of like the reaction against the Jacobins and Robespierre in the French Revolution. All of a sudden people said, you know what, I'm not going to change the date of the French Republic. I'm not going to tear down statues. I'm not going to behead anybody anymore. And the people who did it are going to account for this. And the whole country rose up within a matter of weeks. And this is it's kind of like this was all a mystique, a bad dream we've been in, a coma. And now we're waking up and people said, I can't believe we did that. This was a collective madness. And now we're waking up. And I think the only thing I don't know how far rightward the counter revolution is going to go, but it hasn't really fully expressed itself yet.